I chose the title Pariah for a lot of reasons. The first of which being Alike feels like she doesn't fit in the gay world, nor does she fit in the straight world. So when she's in the lesbian environment, she doesn't feel like she's hard enough or soft enough. She's kind of in between and invisible. And then the straight world, she's not this feminine person her mother wants her to be. So and I named the film Pariah because of that. She feels like she doesn't have a place. And for me, that kind of ties into the Audre Lorde quote, wherever the bird with no feet flew, she found trees with no limbs. And so for me, I interpret that as she has no place, and there is no place for her.
I told you, I talked to Alike. Everything's fine.
Did you ask her?
No, because I don't have to.
You don't want to face the facts.
No, damn it, that's not true. Look, when
your daughter is turning into a damn man right in front of your eyes, and you let him say
I am broken. I am broken open. Breaking is freeing. Broken is freedom. I am not broken. I'm free.
Your past roles have been comedic roles.
Yes.
And so how did you see yourself in it? And
Okay, well, I've always known that I could do dramatic work, and I've wanted to do dramatic work, but since I'm known as a comedian in the industry, it's very hard to get in those rooms. Like, to read for a dramatic part, I can't even get in those rooms. So I've been studying with a wonderful acting teacher for the past few years, Diana Castle, and I knew that I was ready. I was ready to do this kind of stuff. And I was fortunate because this script came along, my manager sent it to me, and it just blew me away. It was so beautiful, so powerful. It just like jumped up off the page. It just like really, really moved my heart, and I wanted to be a part of it. And she had a connection. She was friends with the casting director, so she begged the casting director to see me, and the casting director in turn talked to the director and producer, and they had auditioned like almost every actress in town, and they just weren't finding what they were looking for with that role. And so they were like, okay, if Kim Wayans wants to come in and read, let's let her read.
So Dee Rees has a non-traditional way of working. I've read that instead of doing readings, that she had mock therapy sessions.
Yeah, she had a mock, which was wonderful. I'd never done anything like that before, and I so preferred it to like actually like rehearsing over and over again, because I feel like you just beat the life out of the lines and stuff when you do that. I much prefer this. She hired a therapist and had a mock therapy session, and we each went as character as a family, and she gave us like a little sheet with different things that she wanted us to bring up in this session. And that's it. And it was amazing because we all like fell into a certain kind of dynamic, and you really got a chance to feel your character in the family and how the family relates to her and how you relate to the family and stuff. It was actually quite fascinating and very, very helpful. And that's the only work that I did with the cast. I met them, and then we started shooting like 2 days later. At Pariah and those guys, they had a relationship prior because they had worked on the short, and they did some at Sundance. They did some labs and things. So they had been together a little longer than Audrey Kim when I came on.
So I read that the entire shoot was 19 days. And
Yes.
so you were saying that you met the entire cast
2 days before she said action, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there are only 3.6% of directors in Hollywood are female, and less than 1% are directors of color or women of color. And you got to work with a black lesbian, which she's probably the one point.
The one, yeah.
What was that like, and why do you think that's important to have more directors like her?
It's just we have so many stories that need to be told. We can't just keep seeing the same story over and over again. It's tired. I'm over it. You know what I mean? It's like we live in such a diverse, wonderful country. I'm thirsty to hear these other stories. And so, it's very important to have people like Dee and, other people, of color and other people, other people of color telling their stories. It's interesting. It's part of the mosaic of this country that we live in. And, I think it's very small-minded of folks to think that, the American public only wants to see the same story over and over again, because it's just not true.
We know that it's very difficult to get funding for films that deal with black families or any families that are not white. And tell me about that process and finding funding for the movie.
Yeah, so Nikisa Cooper's the film's producer, and it was really her job to find the money for the film. And so we quickly learned that, people were seeing this as a very small, specific story, which is code for too black and too gay. And so how she combated that was to go to private equity. So I found private investors who were interested in like the social consciousness element of the film, who didn't care if it made a dime. And so our first investors were a lesbian couple who had never done any films, and they said, like, you know what, I don't know anything about film, but I want to see this story get told. And so that's how we cobbled together the money, one investor at a time. And
why do you think it's important to have black women, female directors?
I think, because the more you get diversity of storytellers, the more you get a diversity of stories. And so I think, there's need for a range of voices. And just like mainstream cinema can have, Meet the Fockers and Black Swan and Winter's Bone in theater at the same time, there's room for our stories to all be in theater at the same time, because they're different points of view, different worlds. And I think that visibility is important for, audiences, so that they can see themselves on screen, and also for storytellers that, if you don't tell your own story, somebody else will tell it for you, and you may not like the way they tell it. So I just think it's important to have a range of stories and voices out there that are representative of what our country looks like.